Okay. Hi everybody. Can you guys hear me? Just to be sure, so I check my mic. I think I should just like drop a reminder on Twitter so I don't get. If you guys are texting, I don't think could someone like drop a message in the chat? I know that this is working out fine. Okay, just drop a message. All right. Hi Uzoma. What's up? How are you? The message in the chat. Okay. All right. Okay. Guys, please share the live with your friends. I'll drop a reminder now on Twitter before we begin, like say a couple minutes. I think say 10, 15. Hopefully, I want to keep this under like 90 minutes. I want to try and explain as much as I can to everyone, right? So yeah, so please just share the live before, just for a while. Just check for people to come in. Yeah, hi Promise, hi Ejiro. How are you guys today? How's your Friday going? Let me just pin this. Last time I tried to go live on YouTube, it was a catastrophe. Like I don't know if it was my network or it was my PC. Like I was just struggling a lot. But like trying to uh, just stay consistent. I guess I don't know why that was happening. Let me drop a reminder. Let me just share my screen firstly. Okay, move tab to new tab. All right. To be honest, I'm a little bit nervous if I'm being fair, but I'll just try to be as articulate as possible. Sorry, let me just leave this. Okay, so share. I'm gonna share my monitor now. Screen one. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Um, just like let me know if you can. I'll just okay. So close, 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 close. Okay, thank you, promise. All right, so I think I should just chill. Let me just take a screenshot of what we're doing and just remind people on Twitter. Okay, so Eugene, what's up now? How are you? Screen. Okay, so let me just go on Twitter and try to share. Sorry, I'm looking down. I'm looking at the chat on my PC and I'm using my webcam on top of the monitor. So like, sorry you're not seeing my face, but you'll be seeing my face when I'm talking. We're looking like directly here. So I just want to like take a screenshot now and just post on Twitter that we are up. Quotes, pictures. I don't know how I get this. Okay. Guys, once again, please share the live uh, with people. So we just get started. Don't know if I should entertain you guys with music while we wait. Uh, picture. Okay. Uh, we have 10 people here now. Guys, good evening. I think we'll just kickstart right away and just post on Twitter and just like drop a reminder to people in some communities. Life is weird. Like I have to constantly be looking at the chat. Uh, sorry. Yo, Krista, what's up? Thank you so much, Krista. I appreciate that a lot. I find weird life because I have to constantly be talking, and I'm used to speaking on Telegram, like teaching people on Telegram, so like people can unmute themselves and speak. But live is just the chat, and I have to constantly be checking the chat, else I will miss something, right? So yeah, it just feels weird. It feels like I'm monologuing a lot, and I don't really like that. So I like occasional human interaction. People get to say something. Okay, just like maybe I hear someone else's voice that is not mine. I just feel like a little bit more relaxed about that for some reason. So yeah. Anyways, just give me some seconds. I'm just post a reminder. Uh, live. Hi, Samson. Welcome. What's good? What's good? What's good? Okay. All right. So, guys, just to be sure, how am I doing? Yeah, I'm good, Samson. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm hoping MTN favors us today, Sha. I mean, last time I tried to do this, it was war, man. So, okay. Unfortunately, I cannot move this my image away. Can I? I don't think I can because that will be covering a very important section of the screen. No. Ah, YouTube, man. Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. Because when we get started now, and I'm like talking about certain things, I'm talking a lot about the properties panel. But okay, I think I'll just turn off my camera then, at least for now. So because that area will be like messy, sure. Because we need to see that section of the screen. How do I even do this one? I don't have access to this feature. Okay. How do I turn off my camera? Cancel. I can't. I should be able to do that now. Let me just quit this. Sorry. Thank you, Ed Didion. I don't know if I got that correctly. If I didn't, please pardon me, guys. I'm trying to turn on my camera so like we get to hide my face for the meantime. So like that properties panel of the screen it's available. For some reason, I can't do that. I don't know why. There should be a way. It's just me that doesn't know how to use YouTube. Where are you? Yeah, so my light just went out, and I will have to turn on my gen right now. So, yes, so this is what's going to happen. So, just give me a sec, you guys. Let me turn on my gen and fix up so I can be able to use my monitor. I'm just sharing for a while. Yeah, hold on, give me a sec, please. Okay, I'm back now, guys. Let me share my screen again. Thank you so much, Eddie Young. Appreciate the updates there. I don't know how to turn off my camera or you guys for some reason. I don't know how to turn that off. Let me just I don't know what. Because it's covering your properties, and I don't want that to happen. And I'm not even seeing it anywhere. I don't have access to this. I don't have access to this. Uh, uh, hold on, let me just see if I can browse how to turn off my camera. Because it's covering the properties. Camera, YouTube, YouTube Live. Mm, from the stream settings. Wait, I can't turn it off on live. Okay, okay. Uh, reactions, yes, timestamps, I guess. Um, Oh my god, I'm not seeing where customization. Anyone? Oh, yeah, it's YouTube. So it should be recorded. It always recorded, except I delete it myself after the session, which I don't think I will. But I'm trying to turn off this camera, and it is. You guys, I don't know how we're going to manage without this because it's covering a large portion of the screen. I mean, like, see, you know, what, I'll just be scrolling. All right, guys. Okay. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. Pressman here. Sorry for the delay. I'm still trying to figure out live because I haven't done this like properly before. Right. So I think I will just try to, you know, keep this as explanatory as possible so you really understand. Because we're going to try and design like these you're seeing here. So when you have a component like this, right, how do you, all of the things you're seeing on the right side of the screen here is pretty much the component properties. So I'll like break everything down in a way that you should understand. So I'll go from like talking about the basics, which are uh, components itself, variants, uh, instances, and a couple of others, right? And just tell you the things to consider and the things I do for best practice, right? Then we'll go from like really small examples to like a little more complex example as we proceed, right? So yeah. So if you look at this example here, this is an input field. That's what it is. And for instance, now I created two sizes just for this example. So I have a small size and I have a medium. As you can see, this is the small and this is the medium. Right. Then I have states. As you can see, this is a drop down, so I can select which state I want. This is going to be an active. So if I want the field states, it's this one. If I want the error state to have, like the red stroke around it, right? And if I want the default state where the name is NOB grayed out, right? I will also have that. I want to have the title at the top as well. I have the title there. So sorry, I'm just add a frame here so you get to see this better, right? If I want the title, I could have a title there, right? If I if I want to have a helper text at the bottom, I could have a helper text there as well, right? If I want the helper text without the helper icon, I can turn it off as well. And you notice that when I turn on the helper text, let me just go back. So this is the helper text by default, right? So if I turn the helper text on, right, you see that there's a helper text and there's an icon at the left, right? And if I want to obviously turn off the icon, it will turn off. If you look at this panel properly, that is on my right side, I think I should increase the size so you guys get to see things better. I don't know. Yeah. So if you look at let me go back. If you look at this side of my screen, you'll notice that there's a toggle here, right? And I'll explain all these things from scratch, but I just want to like show you the capabilities of component systems like from here, right? Then I'll start all the way from the beginning, like we'll design everything from scratch here. So right, so you notice that if I turn off this helper text, right, you see that there's a category for helper icon that also goes off automatically. That's because it is it is connected to something. It's connected to a Boolean property, which is this helper text. I mean, if I turn off the helper text, right, it means I don't want to show the helper text at all, right? But if I turn the toggle on, right? I want to be able to see the helper text, but sometimes I don't want to have the icon on the helper text. I'll be with the helper text, so I can decide to turn off the icon by turning off here like this. All right, so we'll learn all about this. And if I want to edit the title, I can say first name. I can come and just type directly inside the panel and click on enter when I'm done, right? And if I want to create another one for this helper text where I can edit the helper text directly from the properties panel, I can also do that. All right, but let's just start from the beginning, from the basics, so that we get to like really understand uh, component properties, right? So now um, there are a couple of things you need to know, like by default. So I created styles here. So like that is color style. So like I find so I can easily just change stuff when we're designing from scratch. but this was something I designed for a friend of mine or with a friend of mine because we were working together. And this was supposed just to help us, like, keep in check with each other in the sense that when I'm working on something and I want to have a note, because I tend to see Figma comments as, not so, what's the word, as not so, is the live recorded? Yes, by default, YouTube records sessions like this. So to be on my channel on the live aspect of the session where you see there of the channel rather. So yeah, it should be recorded. So going on to continue what I was saying. So I created this to help a friend of mine and I work a lot better and faster in the sense that, uh, you know, I don't just like the way female comments are. They are good for like pinpoint stuff, but like it does not give me like a lot more control. So I created this, right? And this basically is an auto layout, pretty responsive. So if I just drag this, I basically have an instance, but that's not really good practice. So let me show you how to bring in something from your Figma panel. So everything you see on Figma that is proper like this is basically a component. All right. So a component with this icon that you see here is pretty much a component, right? So there's a component, there are components, what's the word? There are components groups, right? And there's a variant, and there's pretty much what we call an instance that we'll talk about really quick. So now you see that these are logos here, right? So if I go to my asset panel, so everything you create as a component in Figma will be stored in your asset on that particular file, right? Except you publish the component, you can now reuse it across multiple files, right? So, but we won't talk about that for now. So these are components that I created, so I want to be able to switch different logos in my design, right? So they can be very extensive, they can be very, very large. I mean, some of us have seen icon components before and they're like very, very extensive, right? So depending on how it's created, but this is something you see. So when you see this icon on the left side here, it pretty much means that this is a component, all right? So I think let me just do something to make this easier for us. So let me just use iconify to get an icon. So I'll just search for, sorry, my spelling is terrible, components, right? And hit enter. I'll just bring out this icon here. Then I would also search for, let's search for a diamond, right? Then, yeah, so we have this and we have this. Right, so I'll explain to you why I'm copying all of these guys. So, in case you're wondering why, just, use the colors here, right? Now, okay, so I will ungroup these guys. So now this icon you see, anywhere you see this icon in your design file, is references a component. All right. So let me just, I think I can just ungroup them for now. I don't want to be seeing, the name of the icon doesn't matter. So I can just maybe increase this guy a bit. So I'll just type in component here. Right. So I think I'll space these guys out. And I'll say just increase the, like so, and go back. So anyway, you see this icon in your design file, it is called a component, right? And pretty much a component is what a component means in design or in Figma at least is pretty much a collection of reusable design elements. That's what it means. Okay. I'll show you how to create them shortly. I want to explain these icons because you'll be meeting them along your way, like every single time you're creating or working with components, right? So this is a component, and this particular icon here is called a variant, right? So just align this guy here, drag this guy across as well, and this particular icon is called an instance. So I will talk about these guys from the beginning so you understand. Now, a component is made up of variants, right? So now if I come here, this is just a component. It just has one component, right? But if I show you this particular design file, this one has multiple components inside of it, as you can see here. And when you have more than one variant in a component, it is called a component set, right? So that's what it means. So a component usually has one variant in it, right? But a component set has more than one variant. So all of these things you are seeing here are called variants, right? And what a variant means is a variant is pretty much a variation. That's another name for it, right? It's a variation. So if you look at Now, if you look at the properties panel, look here. Are you seeing this particular icon on the left side? This is the component icon, and all of these guys you are seeing here. If I just collapse this drop down, right? Just collapse all of them. Yeah. So all of these guys are called variants. You can see the icon that I showed you guys here, right? Just remove this. You can see this icon here. You can see this is the icon for variant and this is the icon for component. And now, so what is an instance? We've learned about components and you know, we've learned about components and variants. Sorry, I lost my train of thoughts there. So an instance now is pretty much a variant that has been used in a design, right? So when you create a component and you have all these purple things on your screen, right? That is basically a component or a component set or a component system, right? Now, if you want to use one of these guys in your design, it's called a variant. So how do you create a variant? So when I'm testing components I create, right? Because there are some things you cannot see here. So if you look at the right side of my screen, all of these things, we'll talk about these properties in a bit, right? But if I want to test these things and see if they are actually working, something like this here, this now is called an instance, all right? So just align the center. If you look at the left side of my screen, you can see this is an instance, right? Although I didn't rename this particular input, I should have, but I didn't. But yeah, so as you can see that this particular diamond doesn't have a fill in it, right? And this particular icon is just a stroke without a fill, okay? And when you look at it, that is what references an instance. So an instance is pretty much a component that is in use or a variant that is in use. Let me just put it that way so it makes sense. So just to recap again, a component is pretty much what you see here, right? So if I go back to this other file, this is a component, all right? This is a component. You can call this a component set, by the way, because it has more than one variant. Each of these icons are called variants, by the way, right? Are called variants. And this particular one is a component. If you look at the top, you can see that diamond looking icon, right? This is the symbol that represents a component, which is this icon here, right? And this particular component just has one variant in it, right? It doesn't have any other variant. It's just one. This one also has one variant. Now, this is a component set that has one, two, three variants in it. Okay? And we'll talk about those ones as well. So if you look at the properties, when I select them, this is the component sets or the parent component housing them. This is what this particular icon here is called a variant, right? This is another variant, this is another variant. You can see how they look that way. So see component variant instances. Now these are you need to know these things. So when you are working with them, you know how you basically know how to like just bring them into your screen and what to consider. Okay. Now let's talk about the parent component. A parent component is also called a master component. So let me just straighten it up. A parent component is called a master component, right? And when you think of a parent, as the name implies, it is somebody who is older or somebody who is much more above or much more senior or has much more responsibility. All right. So you hear of a parent component, you have a master component in Figma, right? It is these guys you see here that have these ones. They are always the parent component, right? The variants are the children inside of the parent component, right? And the instance is pretty much a variant in use in the design. That's when you see this like this, yeah. So now how do you import? Okay, I think okay, let's start from how do you create a component. So now if I want to create a component of buttons, and buttons like let's say it's like the most what's the word? It's like the most common example you see around. So I wanted to go from talking about something like this, right? So I'm using like tags and this particular thing here, and this is what I mean. So if I go to my assets, right, and I just so like I said, anything you create in Figma, any component you create will be stored in your assets by default. All right. So and as you can see that I have two drop downs here. That's because I have two groups. So this group is called crypto logos, and this is a section by the way. It's not a frame, and this group is called task card. So if I open my asset panel, Figma will help me group these things the way they are appearing on my file. All right. So this is called crypto logo and this is called task card. And these two, I have at least one component inside of them. So Now, this is where I'm going for. When I come to task cards here, I have three components in task cards, right? I have the name tags, which is this guy. I have this the status tag, which is this guy, and I have the notes, which is this guy here. All right. So I want to use this component for notes now. So I'll just come here and I'll just drag it and just drop it on my screen. All right. And that is pretty much an instance. Now, if you go back to the layers panel and we look at this guy on the file, you can see how it just has, it takes this icon now. Are you seeing? Because this is called an instance, right? And now you see that this instance, I think I should just like reduce. Yeah, so you get to see more. And you see that this particular instance now, right, has certain properties on the right side that I'm going to explain to you like from scratch. But I just want to show you the capabilities. So the idea of components is just to help us design stuff that are reusable every single time in Figma, right? It's good practice. And frankly, this year I've been diving deep into design systems, and I was like, this is something that I struggle with until I like really took time to really understand it. I'm like, why not just talk about this, on the session here, and we're here right now. So essentially, components are just reusable design elements that we can use for a whole lot of things, right? They help us keep our design like much more organized, consistent, and just overall just really neat. So, and like I said, if you have basics of AutoLite, you should be able to like follow through with this session that I'm trying to help you with. Yeah. So you notice that this is now an instance that I have brought into my design, right? And since this is an auto layout, it is responsive, right? So if I drag across, if I put it in another frame and I ask it to fill the container to just fill up the container like so, right? So I have responsiveness just for the width apparently. So let me just go and fix that now. So fixed width, let me see. This should fill the container. I think this can be heard. Fill container as well. I think that's fine. So yeah, so apparently, feel. Okay, so hold on. I'm trying to fix this real quick. This is a fixed width. Okay, hold on. Okay, yeah, it's basically green. Okay, so I don't want this input to be more than this. I think I'll probably just, leave it at 12, I guess, and set all changes. Okay, now the height should also be responsive. Hmm. Right click, reset all changes. So I'm trying to figure out something. Not like it really matters, but I just want to figure it out. This should feel as the container is coming up. So let me go back to the layers and see this very well. Okay. Mm-hmm. Uh, anyways, let me just talk about what I'm trying to do here. Um, I don't want this. I want this container to like. Hold on, I think that should be okay for the heights. So let me see. Reset all changes. Is it the spacing? That's the problem. I'm not supposed to have all of these here. It's the width that should feel the height should be what? I don't know why that's not working, Sha. Anywho, so I did this is an auto layout, so it should be responsive. So when I add more stuff, like so, like I'm typing, like just oh yeah, that's what happened. The height should be hold, you guys. So let me set what changes now. So I think if I copy and paste this component is not responding. Oh, this is fixed. Oh my god. Okay, so sorry, I was struggling with that for some reason, unlike me. So yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean by you understanding auto layout. Like if you really like understand it, you should be able to figure that out. But the reason why that was not working was because I forgot about the container house in it. You know the way it works here when you create an auto layout and you're assigning values to the width and the height to how they should respond, whether they should be hugged or fill the container. Every container that is superseding it, if you do not assign it to that, it's just basically going to like not work. It's not going to be overwritten. So that's why I was struggling with, to be honest. So, but yeah, so this is responsive. The height should also be hugged, right? If it is a fixed height, obviously the content will just go down, and the container housing it will not respond to the content increasing in height or in width, depending. So yeah. So back to what I was saying. So now this is something I created, right? And this is an instance. So if I want to turn off this title, I can turn it off like this, right? If I want to turn off my name, right, I can turn off my name. If I want to turn off my friend's name, I can turn off my friend's name. If I want to turn off the status tag, I can also turn on the status tag. Yeah. Okay, so this is basically the default state I could have, right? And if I want to turn off this software creator as well, I can also create that in the component properties. But just to show you how this is reusable, and since this is an auto layout, it is very, very responsive. So like no matter the content I add, and no matter how I resize this, the content will just keep on increasing like so. So that's why I said like you need to understand the basics of auto layouts, before you can be able to like make progress with this. Yeah. So let me just delete that variant now. So let's try and design. Let me explain to you components, like with an actual practice now. So how do you create a component? So if I wanted to create a component for this icon, that's why I kept them separate here. I can just simply do something. So let's say this is an icon. Let me just bring up this icon here, right? This is the USDC icon, okay? And if I want to create a component, there's a shortcut for it. Either I use a shortcut on my Windows laptop, Control Alt and K. I think on the Mac is Command Option and K, right? You can just use that shortcut, right? So Control Alt K, that's a component, all right? Or you can just once you select an object like this, see these properties at the top here at the center of your screen. This is for components, this is for masking, this is for union, this is for dev mode. But all of these ones, the rest doesn't matter to you right now. So you just turn this on like this, right? And that is a component, right? And Figma has marked this as component. So if I go to my assets, I'll automatically see it there. And this the reason why this guy is at the top and is because it is not inside any container house in it. So if I just draw a frame, sorry, if I just draw uh, a frame around it like this, you see how like it does not come inside frame two. Okay, so yeah, so this is a component, and now a component set is basically like I said before, more than one variant inside a component. Okay, so if I decide to let me just undo this guy. Okay, and I will bring in another icon. Let's say I bring in the XRP icon, for instance. Let me just reduce this to something smaller, right? So now this is an icon, and if I select these two, now by default when I selected one, I did not have any drop down close to uh, the component icon here. But if I select more than one object, there's a drop down for me to create what we call a component set, right? So create component basically means these guys will be treated as one element, which is not what we want. So I will do that. So if I come here and I click on create multiple components, Figma will treat them as individual component objects. As you can see here, this is one component, this is another component. But if I create a component set, right, like this, Figma will treat it as a component that's going to be created with more than one variant in it. And to recap what a variant is pretty much an icon, an element inside of a component set, right? So just one component. What's one variant is majorly always one component. Like this guy now just has one variant in it. Same with this tag here. One variant is just the name tag. This tag, however, has three. So this whenever you see this purple stroke thingy looking purple stroke around more than one object is pretty much a component set. But the icon still stays the same as long as it's the parent component is going to have that same, icon that looks like this, right? So yeah. So this is the component set now. So now this is what will allow us to create whatever properties we want to create in our design or in our component set. So we can assign different values. We can assign text properties. We can assign uh, boolean. We can assign variants. We can assign swapped instances. I'll talk about all of these things later, right? But this is pretty much how to create a component. So to recap, let me just undo. Okay, this is a an icon, and just hit this icon, hit at the top here to create a component. And by the way, this is the old Figma UI. In case you're wondering why my UI looks like this, I just prefer the old UI for now. So I can use the new UI. And when you use the new UI, you have it around here at the top right, in case you guys are wondering. So yeah, new UI will be here, and I can just turn it on. Still the same thing, by the way, right? So I can just turn this component here, and it's a component. I select this two, right? Maybe align it to the center, and just you know come here and select create component set, right? Still the same thing. Okay. So I'll just go back to my old UI for now. Okay. So one thing I haven't talked about is pretty much what we call detaching an instance. So when you create a component, and let's say you just don't want it because you cannot edit components, like you don't have a lot of editing capabilities for components, right? Although you can obviously change the color, right, if you want to, right? But for more advanced components like this one, right, that has a lot of things here, and and let's say you want to just tweak stuff that you don't just like, you have to do what we call detach an instance. Because if you try and delete this guy, it is going to be hidden. It will delete, but it's not going to delete entirely. And if I want to add, let's say I want to add for some reason, let's say I want to add another text inside here. If I control C and control V this icon, right? Sorry, because this is the text. So if I control C and control V, this Figma will just paste the text somewhere, right? Because you cannot add something to a new variant or a new instance in this case, right? So if you want to make any serious changes, you have to go back to the component set and make the changes there. Okay, so it will reflect on the variant. But of course, you can always tweak the value. You can change the name, text properties if you have any, edit some things, change color. But I'd say the actual change when I want to remove something, yeah, you can't exactly do that, with an existing component, right? So this is something you just want to like take notes for yourself, right? Because once a component, it is a component. You can only manipulate a couple of things. The idea is I don't want to change much. I want to change a little. So most of the time the layout is not changing. I'm just removing stuff or hiding stuff. Because if I hit backspace to delete, Figma will just hide it. If you look at it here, it's hidden. The title is hidden. Where's that title? Title is hidden, right? It's not as if it was deleted from the frame. So what if I do not want to have that? I want to be able to like edit things manually from an existing variant, right? So I can just let me just duplicate this and show you guys. Or increase this guy, take it to the top. So if I duplicate this guy, I can do what we call detach instance, right? So close to this side, you see this is the name of the component. This is to go to the main component where it was where you designed initially. That is the parent component that is housing the variant. If I click on it, it will take me to this component here. As you can see, this is called return to instance. If I click on return to instance, it will take me back to the place where I use the component, right? So this is good for people that have a lot of files in their design. So let's say you are storing one component on a particular page in your design, right? And you just want to be able to like, go back and reference something new. Okay. You could go to the main component by clicking on this icon here, right? And if when you're done making whatever change you want to make, and let's say I just explore other instances, sorry, other variants. If I not click the component I just came back from, I would see this action here at the bottom of my screen. So it says return to instance. So if I click on it, it take me back to the place I used that particular variant or that particular instance in this case, right? In my design, which is very, very helpful, right? Just for navigating for people that have like a lot of complex files. Because if I have ideally your component should not be on the same file you are designing with the instance. I'm just doing this to show you like how some of these things work, right? So going back to what I was saying, you can't delete stuff. So if you want to be able to delete and properly manipulate stuff inside of your uh inside of your design, you have to detach the instance. Okay. Now, how do you do that? So on the properties panel, you just come here. These three icons you see here is called the more icon. So these are things you can easily reset all of these properties, right? You can push these changes you are making here to the main component, which I do not even recommend at all, right? So you can now detach instance. You can see there's a keyboard shortcut Control Alt and B or Command Option and B on a Mac, right? So detach instance. As you can see, Figma has removed the blue color, right? And it has, pretty much it's now like the usual sky blue outline when I have like a normal like design component, right? So obviously, so if I don't like delete this now, it's not going to be deleted forever. As you can see, it's not in the layers panel anymore, right? So this is what I mean by detaching an instance. Okay. So now let's go back to our component practice. So now let me start from the basic example and talk about properties a bit. Okay. So when you have a component like this, like I said, this is an instance, by the way, as you can see here. So if I click on this, it takes me to the main component. Like here, it takes me to where it was used. And if I do something again, it takes me there. All right. But what does this purple outline really mean in our design? Okay. Just put this in the frame. So it's like easier to operate. And now I'll put in a section instead. So Shift S for a section and just like drag across like so. And I'll make this white for now. So we get to see the name of our component there. Okay. We just drag this guy. Now, this is a variant, which is pretty much this guy that is being used outside. Okay. Now, if you look at these particular logos I have here, if I go to my asset panel and I go to crypto logos, which is this section, and yeah, I have this logo there. So I just drag this one. What Figma does, by the way, Figma is always copying. I think I've noticed this. This is a theory, but I believe it's like a fact from my observations. Figma pretty much just like copies or shows you the very first element or the very first variant in a component set, right? So if I come here and I just drag this guy, so you can see this is the first icon here. And because I named this guy, I can easily just switch it. So I named this guy in my file, right? And my component set as USDT, this is die, this is this, and I can easily just switch these guys, if I want to. Okay, this is XRP, this is Bitcoin, this is USDC, this is Ethereum, and this is DAI. All right, so as you can see, this is good because instead of me having to, let's say go to Google, search for a crypto image and bring it to my design, if I have a component set, I can easily just switch them when I want to. And the good thing is, if I want to add more, I can always come back to my component set and add a new variant. Okay, remember, variants are elements inside of a component set. An instance is a variant being used in a design, right? So these icons should just help you, explain them. Component is this guy, variant is this guy inside, and instance is this guy you're seeing here. As you can see here, that's what it looks like. Okay. So how do I create this, right? And how do I assign, values or component properties to them? It's quite simple once you understand what you want to do. Okay. So now I will detach this instance, Control Alt and B, and this is a logo. You know what? Okay, let's use this guy as an example. Ideally, I want these guys to be inside the same group, right? Because these guys are images, right? Meaning I cannot change the color of them. So I mean, it's basically an image. If I open the variant, you can see this is an image. This is the image icon here. I can't change the color. The fifth part is an image, right? But what if I want to be able to like I want to use icons and not an image, right? So I can easily just tweak the value later on. Because if this guy that is an okay, this is an icon now. So this is an icon, right? So I can easily come here and change the color if I want to. Okay, let me show you something. Let's say something like this. Let me use green. So I can easily come here and change the color of this guy. But if I bring this particular just come here. If I bring USDT, I cannot change the color of USDT, right? If I add a few color, it's just add a color around the frame itself. But I can't change the color of this guy. So in cases where I don't want to use images in my design, right? I want to be able to use icons so I can manipulate the colors of the icons, right? So how do I do that? So that means I have to create a component for icons, right? That is for logos, for crypto logos that are icons, right? So I can do two things. I can add them inside this component set so I can be able to easily just pick one of them, right? Or I can create a separate component, right? Or a separate component set. Just for the purpose of learning, I think we'll just create a separate component set first, then talk about how you can create, much more advanced properties. When you have like, more than these guys inside this same component set. So now this is an icon, okay? So like I said, you can do one of two things. Either let me just duplicate this guy. Either you create a component with this, and when you look at the top, when you have a component active, you see this plus sign. It means add a variant, right? So if I click on add variant, Figma will add another element like this for me, which is pretty much the same thing, and it's call it variant 2. If I add another variant, it will call it variant 3, and so on and so forth, just like that, right? So now, but the issue with this is when I am creating component set, I rarely go through that method. I am mostly always, creating the things I want to design, right? Except it's just one variant I'm using. Or so in this case now, this is just one element, right? I don't need a component set. This is just one component, okay? But I can easily just come here and begin to edit the properties I want to edit by myself, right? But if I'm creating a set, and most of the times I usually have them outlined first. Like I usually have them away from the screen. Sorry, I usually have them like together like this. So let's say I'll duplicate this guy and I will say create component sets. Okay. So automatically just knows that these guys are together. And since I named them beforehand, right, they are a component. Okay. So if I come here to my assets, as you can see, this is called component 3, I'll just drag one outside and I can just easily switch them here. It's that simple, right? But now one thing you notice is you have something like this. You see something called property 1. Now, what does property mean in a component set? Now, properties basically means a value you are assigning. Okay, if I click on plus here, there's a variant property, a text property, a boolean, and an instance swap. All right, we'll start from the variant, which you already know. But if you click on create variant, it means you want to create a new property. And let me show you how this works. If I go to this other design file here now, and I click on this particular component set, see that there are a lot of things going on here. Okay, all right. So these guys are conflicting, by the way. So we can talk about these guys later. But you see that this icon you're seeing here is basically a variant property. This is a variant property. This is a boolean. This is a text, and this is an instance swap property. And this is like the best example to show you how all of these things can work in design, right? So now, what is a variant property? If you look at this, anywhere you see like a drop down, right? That means that property is a variant property, okay? And variant properties are used for when you want to group things in a particular manner. Let's take this input feed for instance now. We're going to have the active states. I think I should turn on my ring lights. This is getting really dark. Um, you're going to have the active states, right? You're going to have the default states, you're going to have the error state, and you're going to have the field state. So as you can see now, there's a group called states or a property called states that I know of, and I'm trying to like define this property and call it something. Okay, so that is when I introduce what's called a variant property. Now, there's also a property for something like size, right? Property called size. Let's say I want to have a small input field, a big input field, a medium input field, a large input field. Now, this is where I want to introduce this variant property, right? And if I have another property, let's say I want to introduce a property called type. So what type of input field is this? Because you could have different types. You could have an input field that has, a drop down by the left. Maybe let's say you want to change the phone number or you want to add something. So whatever property you want to add or categorize your component set, you define it with what is called a variant property. All right, that's as simple as it is. So if you look at this design now, or sorry, this component set, there are two variant properties, one for size, like I said, to help me differentiate the sizes of the elements I am using, and one for states to help me differentiate the states of like my design or my components if I want to use the error state, if I want to use the field state, if I want to use the focus state, and if I just end up navigating to, let's say, something like this, the active state, you can see the difference, right? So this is the active state, right? And I could add show indicator for the active, that is to show the text indicator there. I can turn it off as well, show title, show helper icon there, show icon on the right side, and all of those things, right? And if I want to even swap the icon, I can also swap the icon myself, right? I could use the bold version or something else, right? So there are a lot of things you can do when you understand the basics of component set, right? So that's what pretty much a variant property is. To recap, like I said, it is when you want to assign group values. I think I like to call them group values because it just helps me. It just sort of like explains the whole idea like better. So this is a variant, right? So I'll ask myself before I begin to start creating any component, I'll be like, what is the goal of this set? What am I trying to do here? Right? If you look at this particular one now, if I want to add these guys inside, which ideally they should be there, I'll have a value for type. Type basically meaning that is a variant property for type. Type basically meaning is it an image or is it an icon? Okay. And let's say I want to have like I want to add like a size value. I'm going to use the variant property and say, okay, big icon, small icon, that kind of thing, right? So that's how you break it down. So you ask yourself, what are you trying to put together here? How do you want to be able to manipulate these objects, right? This is what you do. You end up trying to you discover your end goal by asking yourself questions, as to how you want to end up breaking every single thing down. Okay. So this is just a component set that just has a default value. So I mean, I could just call this icons if I want to, which is the variant property, and this icons has BTC. So importantly now, if I have a lot of things and I want to reorder them, right? You could have a very very long list of elements or a long list of variants. You want to reorder them. How do you reorder your variants, right? So you see this icon here. When you hover on this variant here, you see this icon to edit. So when I click on edit, I can change the name if I want to. But importantly, these are the values here. So I can select this value if I want to just show me where it's on the screen, or I can do one or two things, or I can just come here and I can begin to adjust. So most of the time, when you see like a component set that has a lot of variant inside, it is mostly like in alphabetical order. In my case, I didn't do that by the way, but so if I just come here to the left, you see that I can drag this guy here. My cursor changes. So I just come here and I drag Bitcoin to the top, like so, right? A, B, C, D for die, E for ETH, USDC, USDT, and XRP. So this is like aligned alphabetically, right? So this is very good because if I have a variant outside, like this guy now, okay, and you can see how like it's just easy for me to manipulate them because I can ask myself that okay, this is that, and this is good because when you have a long list and you just key in like a value in your keyboard, right? That is letter X now, it just scroll from top to bottom. So if I have a long list, let's say I have 200 variants inside a component system, and obviously they're from alphabetical order. So if I just click on the first letter, Figma will take me to where that variant is in that set and just show me. So it's good for you to be able to reorder stuff sometimes. It's very important. So now let's go into like the complex example. So I come back to this simpler one later. Okay. So now this is a component set that I have created. So let's do this from scratch now. So because of time, to save time, I ended up like creating like styles. So I can easily just switch the styles if I want to. But I didn't use them on this file. I used them on the other file. So we'll be creating what we have here on a separate file. Okay. So before I do that, I've talked about selected, I've talked about properties, right? I've talked about variant properties. Now text property now is another thing. So what is a text property? Obviously we can't use text properties here because there is no text inside, right? But in this design here now, we have a text property. We have text here. So we can introduce what we call a text property. So anywhere you see T, anywhere you see T like this is what is called a text property. Okay. And this other one is pretty much the bullet I'll talk about like in a bit now. So now a text property as the name implies is just anything that involves a text for you to edit text like later on or manipulate text values. So if I want to hide this guy, I will select it and I can easily add it. So if I delete this property now, I'll show you what I mean. So No, what, let me undo and do it from scratch. Let's just increase this guy. So let's do everything here from scratch. It's a lot easier for us. Okay. So first things first, I am going to use text. I'm going to select this guy and just type in email address here. Okay, and I'll just use the darker color I use here. Sorry, show only my local colors. I'll just use this color here, like so. Right. So this is email address, and this is going to be our title, right? So next thing now is to have what is called our placeholder. Let's call this placeholder, right? So I just put that well. Let's call this placeholder. Okay. And I can just make this P. Then we'll make this an auto layer. So shift A on your keyboard is an auto layer. Make this an auto layer, right? So we'll just let's say we add a 12 pixel padding here on left and the right side, and we give it a stroke value, right? So we now come here. So let me scroll. We come here and obviously we change this to, let's say, one of our colors here, something like this, right? Yeah. Then we come here again and let's say we add a color to the field, which is this guy, and let's just say something like this for now. Okay. And I'll make this guy a medium by the way. Okay. So now this is our text box. Okay. Align to the left and we can drag if we want to. So now we can add our icon, any icon we want to. So I can just go to Iconify, right? And I am going to just let me just say I'll just copy any icon I see. Let me just copy this diamond icon. Okay. And I'll bring it into my design like so. And I'll switch from the numbered spacing to automatic. So it just stretches like that. And I can also give this a corner radius if I want to. Let's just say you know 8, right? So but this is our text box. So I can select this two and auto layout them, right? So I think spacing can be 8 for now. And also change the color of this guy to something like this. Okay, so this is pretty much just our input field, right? That obviously is responsive. So if I drag across like this, it stretches. So one thing that is left is pretty much our placeholder text, right? So how do we add that placeholder text? So we can make this another auto layout. Sorry, we can add another element to the auto layout. So we can come here and just duplicate this guy, Control C, Control V, just bring it down like so, and just say uh, helper text. All right. We just call this, field title. And our helper text should not be this prominent, so we'll make it a medium and obviously reduce the size, like the prominence, the contrast of that text there. And obviously I can also add another icon, right? So I can just to save time, I'll just copy this icon here so we don't waste time. Right. And since this is a commit, I will detach this instance for now and just bring it into this auto layout like this, right? So select these two auto layout, this guy switch to horizontal auto layout, and obviously take this guy to the right side. And I think the spacing here, spacing of 4 should be okay, right? And I think that's good. So we have this guy, we have this guy. Let me use a proper icon here instead of using this one. So just go to Iconify, just bring in, we'll just say email. Okay. So we just keep it nice like that. So we're going with stroke icons for now. Just pick one of these guys. Okay, I think that'll be fine. So make this guy 20, make it into our design like so, and it's so most of the time I like to give a fixed height to my input fields like this because guys, let me turn on my ring lights or my lights everywhere here is dark. Sorry. I hope this is better, sure. Okay, so most of the time, since it's an auto layout here, once a certain height is exceeded, if you look at this now, if I hide this icon, you notice that this text gets bigger. Sorry, this input will get smaller if I hide the icon. So the height is 44 when the icon is inside, right? And if I hide this icon here, is going the height is reduced to a 41. So I like to make sure like my height is fixed most of the time because the height should not be increasing. The only thing that will be increasing is the width. This is good because once you have something like this here where you are now like hiding the properties, like you're hiding uh you know you're hiding, let's say you want to hide the icon inside, right? So the icon on the right, you hide it, right? Are you saying that the height did not affect it, even though the icon is actually bigger than this text in terms of height? I think I used 20 for the icon here, right? Let me see. Turn on the right icon. Turn on the left icon too. So as you can see, the icon here is 20, right? So well, and by default, 20 is more than 17, which is the height of this text field. So what that means is if I increase the input, if I remove the icon, or if I include the icon, ideally this height should also increase because the height should be responsive since I'm using auto layout. But I don't want that to happen, right? So I want the height to be fixed whether the icon is there or not. So I will switch this from hog to a fixed height, right? And this guy, I'll make it a few container because if I do not, right, and I let's say I turn this guy off now, I hide this guy, you see how that this guy will come to the center, right? Even though it is because of the space between them is filled. So what I like to do is I try to make sure that this element is a few container, that is the dummy text. So whether there's an icon on the left or on the right, it won't matter much. Okay, so now let me just duplicate and obviously take this icon to the left as well. Okay, so for this guy will fill the container and I can make these guys it. Okay. And what this means is since by default, yeah, and the reason why when you create components in Figma, you define a lot of things a lot. Like it's just like when like you're working with auto layouts too, you define if you want this thing to be this wide or this big. We're not really using minimum or maximum width here for now, but we're just going to talk about the important things you need to know. So most of the time, right, I have two icons. So this is an input. I could have an icon on the left, right? I could also have an icon on the right side. So what if I don't want to have any icon at all? I want to create the instances. So when I turn off certain things, the dynamism of the input will not be lost, or it's not going to like be scattered all over the place, right? So that's why this guy should always be a few container. That is, the text itself should always be a few container. So when you are stretching these guys, or when you're stretching this value, just keep on increasing. And when you hide this icon, it doesn't change anything. And when you hide this particular icon as well, it doesn't change anything as well. It just stays the way it is, right? So you want the value to be fixed, and the spacing between them is 8 pixels. And why the spacing is 8 is because these are the two things that matter. I don't need to really keep this guy in a new auto layout. So if I do that, it just become like too like complex to work with. So I'll just keep this really simple and keep it this way. All right. So I can end up just manipulating these guys over time. So this text field is always a few container. So it's responding to the width containing it, right? So if there is no icon, it just stretch it across. If there's an icon on the left side to occupy the space it can occupy, right? There's an icon on the right side to occupy the space it can also occupy as well. Okay, so obviously let me reduce the these icons. They're too dark, so I'll just go for something like this here. I'll just use the 300 gray, right? So this is fine. So now, now I can now like begin to like now create my component sets now. So one thing I haven't talked about is instance swaps, right? And for remember what an instance is? It's basically something that is at a component set. Now we have not touched text properties properly because I'm going to explain them now, right? And we haven't touched what's the word? We haven't touched booleans as well. So boolean is basically a yes or a no. That's what a boolean means. But let me just create a component set so you understand what I mean properly. Okay. So now this you are seeing here, this particular one I'm designing, I will name it default state. Okay. I'll name it a default state. Yeah. So I'll name this guy a default state. So I cannot like just let me just increase this guy because it's going to be a lot bigger than it looks. So I cannot like duplicate this guy or I can just make this guy a component, right? So obviously because I named it default, Figma is going to call it default too. So if I now come here and I add a new variant, I have another variant here. Okay, and this is where we now begin to understand properties properly. All right, and this is the best place to explain certain things for you. So I like to add auto layout here just because I want to be able to just have more space. I hate when my things are too close to the edges because if I don't use auto layout, I have to be moving them manually by myself. So let me just say 16 pixels on the left for the horizontal padding, 16 as well for the vertical padding, and space between them can also be 16. Okay, then obviously I can add a new variant to just do the same thing. So for now, I'll leave it this way. I'll move the auto layout now. Okay, so now this is when I click on this guy, you see that everything here is default variant 2, variant 3. Now I want to have four different states. Remember, if you look at this design we have four different states, right? We have the defaults, we have the field state, we have the error, and we have the active, right? So default basically means like everything is grayed out now. I mean, so let me just check this guy is a bit, make this guy 400. I think that's fine. So now default basically means that is the default state, right? That is, I mean, it is not exactly active. So, you know, and when I click on it, it becomes the active state or the focus state. So when there's an error, there's an error state, right? So if you look at this guy here, this is the default state. Like this is anything before you click on anything, right? And this is the field state when something is inside. You see how the text is not like darker, right? And this is the error state. Obviously, there will only be an error when you have an input inside of an element, right? So this is the error state. Okay. And now this is the active state, like when you are typing directly inside it, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so we want to design these four states now. So I will I'll add an auto layout again so it's responsive, add a new variant, and I can remove the auto layout if I want. Okay, now I'm going to call this guy default, call this guy field, right? So properties panel here, call this guy field. Don't worry about the property one for now. I'm going to call this guy uh, error, right? Call it error. I'm going to call this guy you know, focused or active, right? So focused. Now let's forget about properties for now. Now let's just edit these guys, like change their um, appearance actually. So I'm going to make this guy bold since this is the active state, right? I'm going to make this guy bold. So I come here and I just come to my design. Probably make this bolder and maybe I can make it semi-bold. No, I think I'll just increase the contrast. So let me just make this guy 600, right? I think that's fine. Then this is the field states. That's just the major difference. So I can just say, let me put my name here. Uh, just say Chukuno. So okay. Then this one's going to be the arrow state, right? So the arrow, what difference do what how do I want the arrow to appear? I decide it when I'm creating this component. So I just want the arrow to, you know, have an outline of red. So I can just come here and just copy this red hex code, come here and change the value of the stroke. Just remove the style and paste it here like so. Okay, That is our error states. And our focus state is pretty much going to be a little bit different, right? So uh, it just wants, I want to have like a small like shadow, but it's a shadow that doesn't have any blur. So if you just come to effects, and you can see there's a shadow here. So if I want, I could even have like, this is going to be the state, like, when the user is on the page, you could just have like a shadow like this, right? But I like to remove the blur. So if you just come here, sorry, you can't see my property settings very well for shadows because of, I think my face is covering it. Okay, I can move it across. I forgot about that. Okay, so I'll just come here and I'll just remove the blur, change the blur to 0, right? And obviously, uh, just bring the y value here, and just like, just click the content so I can spread it across. So drop shadow again, not to bring it out. Sorry. So yeah, so blur will be 1, blur will be 2. So I can like change the color. So let us say our primary color is going to be, let's say, a pink, right? So let's go for something like this, a pink. Okay. So I'll close this now. Obviously, I'll make this guy. I'll just make it 100. Obviously, it doesn't need to be too much, but removing the blur. Take 1 pixel blur is fine. Then I can just I have to give the element a field. So I just realized that I did not give a field to, like, the input inside. So let's give it a field like this. Give it a field. Give it a field. If it's a field. Because if you don't have a field object, you cannot, like, manipulate shadows completely. So come here again, go to drop shadow, drag it here so you guys can see. Then I will just spread it so it just like becomes bigger, something like this. Obviously, this is too prominent, right? So, or let's use another. Let's use orange, right? Let's say this is like our primary color. So obviously, I want to reduce it. It's too like prominent. So I could just come here and say, okay, 30%, right? And obviously, I also want to come here and put that same hex code on the stroke. So uh, shadows. This is the hex code. I copy the hex code here. Then I come to these properties on the stroke side, and I just so like paste the stroke there. So I was like I reduce the opacity. Let's say I reduce it to 40 as well. So yeah, so this is pretty much going to be what our active state will look like. Just for practice, right? So I can just, I think this is too many. Let me just reduce it to like 20%. And obviously reduce the stroke value here to, let's say, 30%. I think that's fine now. So this is going to be our active state, right? So if you look at our designs, you can see this. So this is going to be our focus, yeah, focus or active, anyone you want to go with. So focused, this is our error state, this is our field state, and this is our default. Now, importantly, we need to like talk about the variant property that I've been trying to discuss or talk about like for some time now. So now, come and see how variant properties are put into practice. So remember, I want to group these guys. Okay, so I want to be able to group them. There's a property for all of these things I've done here now: field, default, active, error. All of these things have a property. I can group them with something and I can call them states. Okay. So now, all of these things that you see in property one, I could just double click here and I'll call this one states. Okay. So now, Figma is, if I click on this guy and yeah, the properties I'm seeing here are pretty much the state. So default, can I say when I hover on default, Figma shows me the one that is default, field, error, and focus. So these are the values under this property called what? State. These are the values for state under this property called state. Okay. So now I want to add something else to this guy. So I want to have, let's say I want to have another variant property, right, for this size. So what if I want to have smaller, what's it called? I want to have, let's say I want to have a small input, big input, large input, and the likes, right? All of those things. So I need to create a separate property for that, right? So I'll show you how to do that. But first off, I will drag this guy. Uh, this is an auto layout, I think. Yes, it is. So I need auto layout for now. Then I'll drag this component across like this, so it's expandable. And I can just come here. I can select these three, and I just drag them across like this. I duplicate them. When I do that, I'm going to get an error message, right? That I pretty much have. Okay, I think the name is changing by itself. So, but by default, you cannot have the same name for some element in your design, right? The same name and the same property. Once you do that, okay, for instance, this is state and this is focus, right? This is state and this is state five. If I come and I call this guy focused, right? I'm supposed to get an error message, right? Figma will tell me that the properties and values of this variant are conflicting, right? Same thing I had here. What the hell happened? Oh, sorry. Delete. I don't know what happened to this file. Let me just delete, yeah. Same thing I have when I was here. Okay, sorry. Where when I clicked on this, you saw this info icons here, right? Because they are similar names. You can see there's L icon, there's L icon, there's right icon, there's right icon. Again, even though they are different values, right? I mean, this is representing a boolean. Anyway, you see this I icon is for a boolean property. We'll talk about that later, right? But see, they are conflicting property names, right? Same thing I have here as well. So Figma telling me that these two values are conflicting. And if I click on select conflicting variant, it will select these two and say their name is the same. They need to be changed. Okay? So it's either they have different states and the same names, or they have the same names and different states, right? So it should not be the same like that. So like now, this is a state, right? These guys are under states, and this state is this. And remember, this is the name of the variant, and this is just a property called state. So the name of the variant has to change because there's already an existing variant with the name called focused, right? So the name has to change, right? So sorry, give me a sec. I need to check quickly. Yeah, guys. So I have a meeting for 7, so I have to drop off by 6:50. Yeah. So give me a sec. I need to schedule the meeting. That's why I checked my mail. Something I was expecting someone to respond to something. Just give me a sec, you guys. I will be done shortly. Uh, uh, sorry, guys, give me a sec. I have to respond to an email. It's urgent. Sorry. Okay. I think I'm done now. All right. So, yeah. So let me just like explain this again. So, like I said, you don't need if you have conflicting variant names, you're going to have an error message like this in Figma. I think what Figma is telling you is that the name of the variant has to change because there's already an existing variant with the same name as focused. All right. So if I think there was a CTA here before. If you asked me to change the name pretty much, right? Just to resolve this, right? So I have to change the name of this guy. So let me just call this, uh, you know, I'll call this guy, let me just call this different variant for now. Let me just call this variant 3. Okay. And that just resolves that. All right. So now, what I'm trying to do now is I want to have smaller versions of this. I want to have a small, or let's say I want to have a smaller looking input field, right? That's why I duplicated this guy here. So now I will come here to my auto layout properties and begin to manipulate. So I would say, let me just reduce it to help again and just say maybe 8 pixels and 8 pixels, right? This is a smaller looking input, right? So instead the height is now 36, right? So I'll come here and I'll say fixed height. I don't want this height to change, even if the buttons are going to be the same. If I want, I could even reduce the size of the button to like 16 if I want to, right? This is the smaller input, and also make this guy 16. But I don't think I need to reduce the size of the button. I'll just leave it that way. I'll just undo. So what's changing now is the height, right? And you can see the height is 36. So I could come here and just change the height to 36 myself, but I want to also be able to tweak the padding. So I can also make this guy 8 and 8. Obviously the height won't change because the height is constant. I'll do the same thing throughout. I'll come here and I'll say uh 36, so the height is the same. Change the horizontal properties, horizontal padding value as well. Then do something here. I can come here and make this guy 8 pixels and make this guy 8. And obviously come here and say make this guy 36. The reason why that didn't work because the height is fixed. So and now you notice that the spacing between them are, are not constant. Hold on, this is not auto layout. That's great. It's not auto layout. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'll come here and you notice that the spacing between here was, oh my god, did I? Guys, this is supposed to be an auto layer. So I have to add auto layer to these guys. So obviously it's responsive. 8. Okay, only it's just that last one that I didn't add for some reason. Okay. So now I'm going to make the spacing between these guys like smaller, right? So 4 might be too small, so maybe just make it 6, right? These ones are currently 8, 8, 8. I think I might just leave it at 8 too. I don't think that's going to be a big problem, right? So yeah, leave it at 8 for now. So now we have created a smaller button now. So now we need to assign a new property. To, how am I saying button? We need to assign a new property to this input, okay? So we'll come here and say, now this is where we learn how to assign a property. So when you create a component set by default, Figma will give you a property. They'll call it property one. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will. I'll do that. Thank you, Gideon. So now, Figma will call something property by default. When you create a property, Figma calls something a property. Yeah. So by default, it's called property one. You cannot change the name. Remember, if you look at our this other design here, see this is property one. We did not change the name yet, right? So now I'll select this component set and I'll scroll to my component properties and I'll click on this plus and I'll click on variant. Now this name you are seeing here is going to be the name of the component group, right? And what is directly under it is pretty much going to be the value. I'll leave the value at default for now, but the name is going to be size, right? So I'm creating a component variant or a component property variant for size, and I'll create. Of course, nothing happens in my design. Nothing happens, but as you can see here, there's a new property called size that only has this value here. Okay, so now I want to assign the size properties to this guy. So I want the size to have two values. Okay, now remember small and big. If I select this guy, I can come here and I can edit this myself. I can add a new value here until I select a variant, right? So when I select a variant, can see that the state, this is the default state. This is field, field, field. But these guys are still just there's a default size. I'm not assigned the size. I want to have two values. So I'll come here and I'll add a new value. Okay. And I'll say this size, I'm going to call it medium. Okay. And I'll hit enter on my keyboard. All right. Now I have two values, medium. I want to change this guy. I want to change this default. So let me just undo that. So I'll select this the property now. I'll click on this here and I'll edit this default value and I'll change it to small. Okay. Now this is the variant property edit panel, which in case I wonder what this is. You can see the name of the property here is size, which I can change, and these are the values on the size, right? And these are currently the ones that have small, and this is currently the one that has medium. So I want to fix that now. So now this is our default placeholder, our default medium. This one here is the smaller one, remember. So this is going to be our medium. So I'll come in and I'll change this guy to medium. All right. And I'll come here and I'll change this guy also to medium. Change this guy. I can select these two and just come here and change it to medium. I can just hold control on my keyboard, select these guys, right? And I'll come here and obviously the value is already on small, so I'll make this guy small. And obviously the state is mixed because they're different states now. So now as you can see here, if I copy, if I just come to uh, the asset panel, right? Let me hide this. So this is currently under practice. So local components, base components. This is the dump page. Hold on. What page am I on? Okay, base component page. Sorry, assets, base component page, and see practice. So when you put a component set inside a frame or a section, this is what the name is. So base component is the page we're on, and this is the practice. I just come under here and I just drag one out. As you can see here, I just have the states. Oh my god, I have to remove some of these things here and the size. So I've not renamed the state should only be 4. So I'll come here and I'll edit. See the values I have for state, it should only be 4. Default, field, error, and focus. These two have to go. Okay. So uh I'll come to I'll come here and hold on. Yeah, sorry, I'll come here, that is to each of these properties here, and I'll come sorry, I'm gonna do that. 2, 3. So you notice that if I want to change the value of, let me just bring this here so we get to see it better. If I want to change the value of that's change the state, it should be 4. But I'm seeing 8. I'm seeing default with error. I'm seeing this other variant here. So I have to go back to these guys and rename them to basically give them the values I have for the state. Remember, these guys are the same with these guys. The only difference is just that the size is different. So what is constant is pretty much what's constant between these four is pretty much the size. What's constant between these four is also the size, right? So this is also a default state. So I'll come here and I'll say default, right? Come here and I'll say this is the field. I'll come here and I'll say field. Come here and I'll say error. Come here and I will say uh, focused, right? So that's it. So if I come here and now I only have just these 4 values that I can change, right? Field, error, focused. As you can see here, I think the focus should have an image when something is active, right? So I don't think the focus should be a placeholder. So I'll come here and obviously even the placeholder should also have this state. So I'll just come here, I'll copy this value and I'll paste it here and I will paste it here. All right. So yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, so this is as you can see, the change I made in the parent component is affecting this instance. Remember, this is called an instance. You can see here, right? So this is an instance, right? So I can just come here and I can begin to say, okay, small. Because this is the smaller one. I can change from focus to default, change from default to field, and I can also come and begin to edit the names I want to. But you notice that from here, right, I cannot edit anything. So if I want to edit any of these text, I have to come here and start, I have to control click inside and begin to edit. So there's something called an a text property, right? Yes, this is where we apply text property. So now, if I come here and I select this object, right, you see that there's something. If I go to the text panel here, you see this thing, this field title here. Are you seeing this icon? Is it says the property creation for text. So if I click on text property, I will get this drop down here that I can edit. So I can say the name will be text and the value will be field title. Okay. And now the name of this property is going to be the name you see by the left hand side, right? And this value is going to be the value of what the text is. And in this case, since it's the text property, right, it's going to be what is going to be inside here. So we just click on create the way it is. And if I go to my design, right, obviously I only added the text property to just this guy here. And who has the text property? I can't select it from here. So I will check which one did I add text property to? Okay, I added the text property to like the component set itself. So now after assigning it to a value, okay. So now I'll come here and I will click on the inside. Wait, hold on. I should be able to. Sorry, I can't see. I'm always there's this mistake I make when creating components. Sometimes I look at the component inside, right? Testing, right? Because if I don't do that, I won't get to see like certain things. So now this is the medium button. As you can see here, this is the medium, and this medium that has to be the default. Now, are you seeing that I can see the text that is it's only available to this one I added the property to, as you can see, right? So now if I come here, I can just change this value to let's say email address. And once I press enter, it's going to change. So I'm just add a section here. So shift S so we get to see what's happening. Maybe section right. So now are you seeing down that this property now allows me to directly edit the text without entering inside the auto layout or inside the component. Before now, obviously, if we have another instance, now I just switch this to let's say I switch this to field, which doesn't have property, so I cannot edit it. So I have to now control click and start changing the values there, right? But this is what a text property is. So if I come here, but if I select this one, two, three, I'm holding Control and Shift by the way. Select this all the titles, right? And I will come to text property and I'll click here. And since I already have a property called text, I will just click on text. By the way, I'll change this to title by the way because that is not working. So select the main component and I'll switch this. I'll come here and edit and I'll call this title instead of text. All right. And that's all. So now I can easily just change all of these values, right? So I can say first name, I can say reflecting. If I change all of these guys here, right? Use the small one, it goes small, default, focus, right? All of those things, right? Now, what's next is for us to add what we have, what we call a add what we call the boolean that you see. So what represents boolean is this eye icon, something like this, right? So yeah, so these things you see here, this icons, if I select this parent component, these things you see here are called booleans, and it's basically what boolean means. It's a yes or no value, either you hide or you review stuff. Okay, now so if I want to hide something, right, how do I do that? So I will select the icon I want to hide or whatever I want to hide. Let's say I want to be able to hide this title. Okay. I will click on it again. And under transparency or under layer, right, you see another value here, another the same icon you see under text, right? But we already have a title, that's why this one is active here. This icon is called the Boolean property. And now let me explain what the boolean is again. So I click on it, I get a drop down, right? And now as you can see, this is true. True means the toggle is going to be on, and false means the toggle is going to be off. What does false mean? False means hide by default. So you can use true or false, you can use yes or no, you can use on and off, right? This is when you're creating other properties. Or when you want to create a boolean, that's this toggle you see without creating a boolean, without going to the boolean property directly on the right side of Figma, right? But just know that boolean means yes or no. So once false is on, or once false is what I'm using, what I'm telling Figma is I'm telling Figma to hide this value by default. But I don't like to do that. Most of the time, I like to review the properties, right? Like, so I want to be the one to hide them myself. So I get to see what is visible on the screen. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So ideally now, I'll end up hiding, I'll review this by default. So as you can see name here, it says show field title. Or I'll just say show title instead, right? And the value is true. Yeah, and the value is true. So I'll click on create property. Now I've created a boolean, and remember this is for the medium default. So I'll come here, and as you can see, the show title is here now. If I turn it off, it hides. That's pretty much how it works. Okay, and sometimes you get to see, and it's not as if it disappears or it has removed it. It's just there. It just hid it temporarily, right? So I hide it, and that's it. Okay. So I don't know why this line is showing in Figma, but yeah, that's the whole idea behind it. Do I have an underline? That's weird, chat. Anywho, so that's pretty much how that is designed, right? So that's how you add boolean value. So now I've created a boolean. So if I click come here, I can see all the properties that are on this set, right? So see it is showing show title, right? So I can come here and just end up adding the values I want. So I'll select all of these guys. I can use smart layer selection, right? So select all of these guys here, right? Then I will go to uh except from this one rather, I'll go to oh sorry. I have to hold shift and unclick this one to doesn't select. And I'll go to layers panel, this layer property rather, not layers panel. And I'll come here and I'll add this boolean property and I'll click on show title. So because since I have one boolean property, I want to use the same property for all of these guys here and I add it. Right. So what that means is if I come here, I can just turn all of these guys off, whether it is the field state or is the bigger size medium, I can turn them on, I can turn them off. All right, so that's pretty much how I created the boolean. So same thing applies for the helper text. I can select the helper text here, and I'll just go to this layer side, and I can just click on select matching layer so I don't waste time, right? And I just come here and I'm going to add a new property. So create property, right? So click on create property, and I'm going to add show helper, right? And keep the value on true by default. That's because I want to be seeing the value. If I turn this guy off, right, and I click on create, you see how Figma will hide it for me. I see the difference now between using true or false. False by default will hide, but I don't like to use false in my main components because I want to know where everything is. I can begin to manipulate things when I'm using, an instance in my design, right? So I'll just, I can just come here, uh, select this guy. Which is the show helper. I can change the value to true. Okay. And what this means, now, if I come to my design here, I can just, once I turn off show helper, it's going to go off. I turn off show title is also going to go off, right? That's what I did, and it's pretty much that simple, you guys. So if I want to have a new property, let's say I want to add a new property, let's say for something else, let's say I want to have what can I pick? Maybe let me say a type of input. Like I said, sometimes you have cases where you have input, you have like a number here, right, and maybe a drop down or a country and a drop down. So that is a left element. So you could create a new property for that. Then you not tell the components that this is the name of the property. You now assign that property to each of the variants that you want the properties to have. That is simply what you do. You just rinse and you repeat that same process all through the set. All right. So now I've shown you guys how to create component sets. I've shown you how to create instances. So same thing you could do here for icons. So if I select this icon here and I go to the layers panel, so the layers section with properties, and okay, not from the instance, from the main component itself. If I come here, I select this guy, and I just select matching layer, so it selects all of them for me. Then I just come here to transparency and I just add a boolean because I want to be able to hide the icon, right? So create a you not select create property that is a new one, then you say show right icon, right? Show right icon, right? So then you leave the value on true, right? And you click on create. And now all of these guys have a property. So you can come here and hide the right icon if you want to, right? Same thing with this guy. Okay. Now, so that's for Boolean. We've talked about Boolean, we've talked about the variant, we've talked about text property. And the last one is the instance swap. Now, if you want to be able to swap an instance, how do you do that? So now sometimes where you have a surface layer element, let me just copy this logo element. This logo, this guy locked. Hold on. Why can't I select this? Is it locked? That's weird. Oh, okay. There's a frame on top of them. Ah, okay. I was wondering. So let me just copy this set into this particular file. I'll show you what I mean by instance real quick, right? I think we might have another class again where I just talk about these guys better. Because I have to drop off like very very soon in like the next 5 minutes. But let me explain to you what an instance swap is. So this is the only thing we haven't talked about. Hold on. Okay, so now by default, you have, if I click on a new property, right? So we've talked about the variant, talked about text, talked about boolean, talked about this is the last thing we haven't talked about. So what is an instance swap? As the name implies, an instance, like I said before, is an element that exists inside a component set. There's sometimes where you might want to swap multiple instances in your design. Like for instance, I like the way I have this input field now here, right? What if I want to be able to change the icon, right, without necessarily having to, detach the instance, right? How do I do that? Since there is no linked instance to this, let me just do something real quick. So I will copy this guy as an instance. I'll copy this guy here, right? And let me just add it to something here like this. I'm going to add it here, right? And now as you can see here, this guy is here. This icon is here now, right? But I cannot change anything from that icon. So I will select this guy, okay, and see, I can now come here and change it one by one. On this design now, the only way to do that is to press enter, big control. You have to click on pressing enter, enter, or control and clicking to come here and change this guy. What if I want to be able to I want to change this guy from the surface level, like from the top, without necessarily needing to like go deep into the layer of the object or the element. So I'll come here, select this guy, right? And I'll come here. In fact, I'll add a new property called instance swap, right? And I'm going to call it, let me just say Web3. Let's call it Web3 for now, right? And the instance is, I'm going to select where I want the thing to be, right? So, on this icon, sorry, practice. Hold on, what's the name of this group component? Okay. So, uh, so I'll come here and I will see this value. You see this value you see here, right? Just know that every single thing on the properties panel that has to do with swapping instant, that's to do with adding a new value, right? Everything you need is this icon here. Once you see this icon now you're seeing here for anything around a component, right? This group is for a component. It is for swapping instances. The icon around layers is for visibility, which is the off and on. It is under what? Boolean. By hover, you see Boolean. If it's a text and it's under text, it is a text property. And obviously, if it's a new variant, you won't see it on the right side. You have to add it by yourself, like manually. Okay. So I'll select this guy here and I'll click on this property to add an instance. And now you get a model on your screen like this. So now I can call this, let me just call this Web3, right? And this values, this logo that I see here is the source is the source where it's going to be sourcing the thing from, that is sourcing the component from, right? And these are the preferred values. So by default, I can remove this if I want to. And what this means is, what preferred values means is I'm telling Figma that I want you to focus on this area majorly. And this is good for where you have like a lot of stuff. You want to just focus one area of, you want to just tell you, allow the users or create a system in a way that they can only focus on something on the right side. Or sorry, on a particular group in your design. Let's say you have a component for this guy. Like now in this case, now this is where it's going to source this guy from logos. But what if you wanted to source like a preferred value, like in a bigger space? You can tell it to do that, right? So I'll just remove this for now, and I'll click on create property. So now if I come here, I can easily just swap this value here, right? Sorry, hold on. What's the name of this progress? Okay, so property, add, okay, select. All right, cool. So um, why is it? Where is this source? Wait, I'm trying to detach. I should be able to swap the icons. I think I'm missing out something. Hold on. Let me just delete that again. So there's something wrong with what I did here. You should have an instance swap. I should be able to change this easily, but I don't know. Hold on. I think there's something wrong. I'm supposed to be able to swap this content from the surface level without necessarily need to enter. I can easily swap it from here, but I don't want to be able to do that from like that. I don't want to be entering the content. That's hold on, variants. Yeah, this is it. So guys, I'm a little bit stranded. I'm wondering why it is not working. When I click on it, it should swap the instance for me. That's weird. What if you want to add a new element to the text? No, 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 you don't detach. I'm just saying, sorry, I rarely read the chat. I'm sorry, Samson, but if you want to add a new element to your, and like I said, everything you are doing has to fall back to the parent component, right? So if you want to add anything new, you come here and add it. Same way I added this, but this icon now here. I came here and I added it inside the component. That is a variant or inside the set itself. So I don't have to. If you detach any instance, you are removing the component properties from that particular element. It's going to be a problem for you. Do you get? So you don't want to be able to do that. So yeah, come to your component or your main component and begin to edit whatever thing you want to edit inside there. Okay. So I will tidy up this file and send to you guys. And I'm still trying to figure out why this is not showing. I think I missed something because I should be able to edit this guy directly from here. That is to swap this instance. But it is swapping the components I have, but it's supposed to be able to swap. I want it to be able to swap. Uh, you know, basically just to change the instance of that particular component set, but it's not working for some reason. So I will probably have to check that out later. Well, guys, any questions? Any questions at all so far? Any questions? I think I was even moving too fast, and I'm not used to like reading, doing this on YouTube. So like I have to constantly keep checking YouTube, checking the comments. But any questions, anyone? Any questions so far? Ah, thank you, Oladipo. So one thing that's left now is to figure out how to swap these guys, swap the proper the instance, like swap the instance from this main component sets, like from here directly, which I should be. I don't know why I'm finding it difficult. I don't know why I'm not figuring it out here. So I know it has to be an instance swap. Wait, no, what is this saying? Parent component. Oh, is that what I think just happened? Hold on. Sorry. See, oops. No, still the same thing. So let me add the value for 3 and it's still not changing. So I'll figure it out and let you guys know, sure. In the meantime, I think I'll use this weekend to tidy up the file and get back to you guys later. Could it be that because there's no master component? This is the component it's supposed to reference and change. I've done that before, right? But I don't know why that's not working out. So hold on, see. Um if I come here now, hold on, base components icon. Are you seeing this thing here? I'm supposed to be able to swap it like that. But maybe I just swap these icons now. I'm supposed to be able to do that here. But let me just inspect the variance myself and see if I missed anything. Okay. Maybe I'm active. Oh, I have to attach. Guys, I have a meeting for 7. I have to drop off now, Sha. I'll figure this out and maybe make a short video on it on Twitter and just share with you guys. So so yeah. So thank you everybody. I have to drop off. And if you have questions, just tag me on Twitter. I'm so sorry. Meeting is quite impromptu and I have to like jump on it. It's for 7 and this is already 7. So thank you guys. I will see you guys later. Bye.